What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, welcome to my channel and welcome to another True Crime Sunday. Today we are doing an Australian case, and it's actually a case that no other true crime YouTuber has covered before, which I am shocked about. I get it, it's an Australian case, but it just seems weird that nobody has told his story before. So today we are going to be talking about Daniel Sheppard. Another reason why I am a little bit confused about why this case is so looked over and why it has so little coverage is that it's been linked to the family. And if you don't know what the family is, it is an Australian group of people who used to murder young men. And actually a couple of you guys have requested that I do a True Crime Sunday on the family itself. So Daniel Sheppard was a 19-year-old boy who went missing while on his way home from a New Year's Eve celebration. Daniel was also part of a twin, so his twin brother's name is Michael. They also have 5 other sisters, but by the time the boys were born, the sisters were already old enough to be living on their own and already be living their separate lives. They are the children of Patricia Sheppard, who was widowed when the boys were only 15 years old. Now, the family was never a really well-off family, but they did have a good childhood, and when the boys turned 18, they started going to work. Daniel was working in a powder coating factory while Michael started working by producing auto parts. So let's talk about Daniel. As you can see, Daniel was a 19-year-old boy, but he could easily pass off as someone as young as 16. He had long blonde hair and he was a little bit smaller than your average male. Daniel was into heavy metal and fishing, and he liked hanging out with his friends. And it was on New Year's Eve when the boys would get separated after a long night of celebrations. Michael got home by catching a tram into the city and then catching a train home, but Daniel wanted to stay with his friend Ben and his friend's girlfriend. So the three stayed out for a little while longer. They went to a couple of different clubs before ending up in a place called the Empire, which is more of like a pool bar type situation, kind of like Fat Louie's, how we have that in the valley. And it was about 3 a.m. when his friend and his friend's girlfriend decided that they wanted to pack it in and head home, and they actually left him talking to a girl called Pamela Tanner. Pamela then says that Daniel had left her at around 4 a.m. and he said that he was heading to the train station to go home, which was confirmed by a group of acquaintances that he had seen at the train station. He did board the train at 4:15 with the group of girls, and the girls did confirm that when they got off the train at Alberton, that he said he was going to pack it in and head home for the night. But one friend still remained on the train. He wasn't sitting with Daniel, but he did see Daniel get off the train at his stop. So Daniel definitely was confirmed to have gotten off at Port Adelaide station, which is only a 10-minute walk away from his home. And even though the walk was so short, he was never seen again. So then after Daniel went missing, there were extensive searches which started at the Port Adelaide station all the way into West Lakes, which is where he lived, but they also searched the surrounding riverbeds. Divers entered and searched the Port River, but nothing was ever found of him. And there was one possible witness who claims that they saw Daniel walking in the opposite direction of his house, but both his mother and his brother say that they don't believe this potential witness because they just don't think that he would be naive enough, or you know, they just don't think that he would be walking in the opposite direction. He was very street smart, he knew exactly where to go, and also they said that if he decided that he wanted to go home for the night, that's where he was going. He wasn't going to go anywhere else or make a split decision to just go to a different party. It was just so early in the morning / late in the night that they just don't believe that he would have made any other plan to go anywhere else. They say that he would have gone straight home, or at least tried to. Nevertheless, this potential witness said that they saw Daniel on Grand Junction Road, but again, this sighting can't be confirmed and the family don't believe it. When Daniel went missing, a lot of his co-workers were extensively, heavily questioned, but his twin brother Michael says that Daniel got along with everyone. He says that if Daniel didn't get along with anyone and if Daniel was a troublemaker, that he would be upfront honest about that, because he just wants his brother to be found. But he said that no, he got along with literally everyone. 3 weeks went by and nothing came to light. So Daniel's twin brother Michael put on a wig and he followed Daniel's route. He got onto the train, he got off the train, all of it was filmed and it was released to the media in some sort of hope to re-spark or reignite the investigation. Tips did come flooding in and police did follow up on every single tip, but they led to nothing. Furthermore, the police said that if Daniel did have an accident, that they would have found his body by now. The police did receive a tip saying that Daniel was into hard drugs, that he had some sort of drug debt, but they followed up on it and they realized that this kid was only into smoking some weed and not into anything heavier than that. And then later on, there would be a man who was high on some pretty hard drugs and who is also an alleged drug dealer, who said that he had something to do with Daniel's murder and that Daniel would be found under a concrete slab that was in his backyard. So the concrete in this man's yard was actually looked into. The police brought in a ground penetrating radar system, and what they found was there was a whole bunch of asbestos underneath the concrete slab. And what that tells us is if there's asbestos under there, that means that that area hasn't been disturbed in the recent past. And as I said in the beginning of the video, these theories that are coming out are just very elaborate. He was linked to the family. A lot of people think that the family was responsible for this killing, because even though they were big about a decade before, a lot of the members would have still been alive, and there are a lot of members who haven't been caught. And when Daniel's twin brother was asked to comment on whether or not he thought that the family had anything to do with his brother's disappearance, he said that, listen, if you get robbed, you're left without a wallet, but you're still left alive, maybe with a black eye, but you're still there. And that leaves us able to assume that he was taken for a purpose more than robbery. The family have said that while they do believe it was an opportunistic attack, meaning that somebody did take him or did do something to him, that they don't believe it was personal, because him deciding to go home at that point in time wasn't something that he planned that night. It was just something that felt right to him at the time, and no one really would be able to plan around that. And to me, it does sound like a likely theory. I do think that if he was taken, somebody did plan to go out and take someone that night, but I don't think they planned to take him specifically. But that brings us into probably the only lead on this case, and that is of a nurse named Carol, who literally lived on the route of him going home that night. Now, Carol says that she was awake around the time that he would have been going home, and she said that she was awake because her daughter was really sick and she was tending to her that night. While she was awake, she said that she heard a young man screaming just outside her house. She said that she heard the young man yelling, "I don't need a lift, f*** off," and continuously screaming, "F*** off." She said that after she heard the screaming, she heard some muffled noises, and that prompted her to go outside and see what was going on. And when she went outside, she saw a car that had people in it, but it didn't have any headlights on. She said the car was either a Ford Falcon or a Holden Statesman. Carol said that what worried her was that the headlights weren't on, and she saw a man in the driver's seat, nobody in the passenger seat, and what she thought at the time was vaguely the outline of a woman in the middle seat, as in the back seat, but the middle seat, so she could see it in the window. This alarmed her enough to go back inside and wake her husband up and say, "Something weird is happening outside of our house." And her husband was like, "Listen, babe, it is New Year's Eve. There are gonna be drunk people out there doing crazy stuff. Just go to bed." Carol sat with it for a few hours, but she couldn't just not say anything, so she did call the police a couple of hours later. A couple of days after that, she learned that Daniel had gone missing, and when she saw a picture of what Daniel looked like, 2 and 2 kind of came together, because the vague image of a woman that she thought that she saw in the middle seat looked a lot like Daniel. Daniel has long blonde hair, he's got a very small stature, and she said that it very likely could have been Daniel. And her street is on the route of which he was walking home that night, and the timeline matched up. So Carol lived on Jane Flaxman Court, and that is part of the route that he would have taken to get home, and it was only 5 minutes away from the train station. So even though this happened 25 years ago, Carol decided that in 2018 she wanted to know if it had gone anywhere. Obviously Daniel's case is unsolved to this day, but she just felt, I guess, drawn to contact the family, and so she did. She contacted Daniel's mother through their missing persons Facebook page. At first, the Sheppards were kind of like, this is a strange message, but you know, when you have a missing person and you're trying to advocate for that missing person, especially through online forums and Facebook pages and things like that, you do receive a couple of weird messages. And so they thought that she was just, oh, here's another one. That prompted the Sheppard family to contact the detective who was still on Daniel's case and ask about this nurse who claims that she may have witnessed the incident that happened to Daniel, because no detective or police officer had ever told them about this incident. And so when they did contact the detective, he went through all of the paperwork and saw that she was interviewed about the incident, and that there was also a follow-up on the incident, but it never went anywhere and nobody followed that lead. Both Carol and obviously understandably the Sheppard family are frustrated by this, because if that incident was released at the time, somebody may have been like, I saw that car that night, I thought that car was, you know, the people in the car were acting weird, or I actually know that, you know, my cousin or my sister or my brother or my friend has that car, they're a bit of a weirdo and they were in that area that night. But because no mention of this incident was ever released to the media, that meant that nobody could ever report something like that. So there's a huge opportunity that was missed. There is a $200,000 reward for any information that leads to an arrest on this case. Daniel's twin brother Michael, who now has a family, says that he has not celebrated his birthday, obviously because they share the same birthday, but he hasn't been able to celebrate his birthday since Daniel went missing. The police say that on the night that Daniel left that train station, at the same stop, at the same time, there were a lot of other people who got off that train. The police say that even if you heard something strange that night, if you were in a side street, if you even know of any rumors from that night, they urge you to report that to the police. It doesn't matter how insignificant you think that thing might be, and yes, it has been 25 years since this happened, but you have a family who wants closure, and even though his mother is elderly right now, I do believe that it just takes one person to be like, my creepy friend, my creepy sister, brother, whatever, was in the area that night, or I recognized that car from that night. I didn't want to say anything, but you know, it could be anything, and it would give this family a lot of closure. I do tend to believe that this nurse's story is more than a coincidence. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I don't know if a lot of American people, which is like most of my viewership, has heard of this story, but if you're Australian, let me know if you've heard of it, because there are literally no videos on Daniel Sheppard's case. Next Sunday, I found a case that is not related to this case, but I found next week's case by looking into this week's case. So I look forward to sharing that with you next week. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. It really does help. And if you want to see more True Crime Sundays, I do one every single Sunday. I'm also posting a series of story times in the coming days, as well as my first YouTube check video, which is my first ever mukbang. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.